Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is January 15, 2023. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. It's a real honor and a pleasure to be here with Probyn Gregory. Is that how you say your last name, Gregory?
Yeah. Oh, you didn't ask what the first name, huh? Yes,
Probyn,
that's it.
Probyn, where in the heck you calling in from?
I'm calling from my house in Tujunga, which is in the foothills of Los Angeles.
How cool is that? The first question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
Wow. Well, right off the top of my head, death. Death is the best thing, and I'll tell you why. Because without death, you would continue to live like some sort of vampire, living for thousands of years and not enjoying life and getting bored, and it wouldn't be good. So because there is a finite end to it, without death, there can be not as much meaning as there would be otherwise.
Super heavy. I just wrote a big article on death. I've collected death quotes forever. And really heavy what you said, because often I get living, being alive, and Louis Buñuel says, long live the living. But see, you flipped it, make it a positive thing in essence. But I have to pull this question that comes up later now is, can you forget to die?
Forget to die. I think it's easy to put off. I mean, everyone always you always get up every morning with something in your day that has to be accomplished, even if it's just I got to stand up and get out of bed and walk the dog because they're barking. Forget to die. So in other words, your day can get really filled up with stuff, and maybe you don't want to die right then. Oops. Uh-oh.
Yeah, you're still there. It's all right. It freezes sometimes.
No,
Yeah.
no, no. I'm getting music. I
Oh,
think
wow.
I haven't. Hold on. Oh shoot. Hold on.
Yep. You mean you're getting reception through your Bluetooth or
I,
something?
yeah, but oh, hold on. I have to turn. It's. I think it's connecting to another computer. Let me turn this
That's it.
computer off.
Yep. Great.
Um, I'm so sorry about this.
Don't
I'm
worry.
hearing really loudly music right now. Okay, hold on.
It's the voice of death playing their theme song.
Oh, now that's interesting. So that computer's off, and I'm still. Oh, this is terrible. Hold on. It was
Okay,
by
so now
touching it.
you might have another thing open at the top. You know those
I'm trying to see it. I mean, I know who it is. It's this. It's a vocal group.
well, you'll find it up at the top. What do you call those things? Oh, okay. Probyn will be with us back in a second. Probyn has played music with the Beach Boys and Brian Wilson for many years now. And it's an honor and a pleasure to be with a musician who actually plays over 30 instruments. So we've met over the years here in Los Angeles. He was the roommate of a dear friend of ours, Rich Ferguson. And before we started, we were talking about John Lee Hooker and Chuck Berry. And Probyn told a great story where another dear friend of ours, Rit Hen, here we go.
So I'm so sorry about
And
that.
Probyn, you're back.
It's the technology is too much. I merely touched my little earbuds that are new, and it apparently they're so multi-purpose that they connected to something else, thinking that I wanted to end what I was doing now.
Listen, there's no problem. I just gave a little blurb of all our cool talk before. So it's all good. So you're all set now. You're not hearing the music?
Correct.
Okay. So can you forget to die was the question. And you were actually answering it fine.
Yes. Forget to die. As I say, your day gets filled with things, and no one wants to die on any particular day unless you're really depressed. Although that's not true. I've seen some people on their deathbed who were ready to go, and it happened, and it
Yeah.
was acceptable. Forget to die. Geez, I don't have a concrete answer for that one. I think I'll have to pass on that.
That's all
Sorry.
right. Um, what's your favorite form of information, how it comes into you?
Audio.
There you
I
go.
I like things. I mean, I'm a musician, so I already like I can't draw. I'm no good with visual art, but things occur to me when I hear things, and like with my eyes closed, it's just I'm more comfortable with that. Um, I mean, of course, as I walk on the street, I have to keep my eyes open to I don't get hit by a car or that sort of existential stuff. Um, but my favorite form, which is the question, is I think that the audio avenue channel of information is my favorite form of did you say communication or data?
The information's the word I use, but it's good you use to expand. That's what it's all about, Probyn, is expanding or dealing with the wording on my questions, because they're basically just prompts. And if you want to change the verb or the noun or suss it out more, that's fine. Because the next question is, why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Well, first off, for survival, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, why, but that's, and I'm trying to get into the meat of that question. Why? Why do they do it? I mean, because you could just sit there lazily doing nothing in the dark, but things would still probably occur to you. Um, I'm not sure we're in control of it. I think that if we have functional senses, it's very hard not to pay attention to those senses. Um,
Well, it's perfect. You're leading into the next question perfectly. And it's really good
okay.
because Probyn, again, I compliment you because most people, 95% of people go survival, but you said, I want to go a little deeper. Like you want to probe the question. Like that's why your name is Probyn. One of my teachers taught me words evoke more than their meaning. And, I'm going to bring up Marshall McLuhan a lot in his study of how things shape our behavior. And he didn't have concepts. He was probing. So it's like amazing to interview someone whose name is actually what I do is probe. Probing. It's really funny. I mean, but I love that you wanted to go a little deeper because the next question, Probyn, is this need or want to collect information more innate or more invented?
I'd have to go with innate, but let me
Yeah.
think about that again. I mean, that's just my gut response off the top. Um, sorry, my new headphones are not fitting right, so I'm having to diddle with them all the time just to get them to not to fall out of my head. Um,
No worries.
Repeat the question one more time.
Let's go on because it's
Okay.
sort of evident it's innate. And a lot of the stuff you'll be able to suss out. But fill in the blank, Probyn. I don't know what I think until I
uh, uh, I don't know what I think until I've weighed all the possible inputs that I can detect and get a balanced response from my if I have all the input, what is the first reflection or echo that comes to me? And because
wow.
that's my instinct,
Yes.
and I trust my instinct, my first response is almost always right about something.
Super cool. Yeah, that's Ginsburg said first thought, best thought. And McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. And Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it. So you got a good sense of that. Now, Chomsky says that a language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do when language doesn't work, when language breaks down?
I do actions, and secondarily, if it comes down to it, in terms of like language, is a sort of a form of communication, and as you say, it's much more deep culturally. So is
Yeah.
music. So is
Yeah.
music. That's one of the reasons I'm a musician, is that that's something I rely on. Like, it's not like I can pick up a guitar and someone says something and I don't, my answer is beep boop on the guitar. It's not that easy, but I'm just saying that what am I saying?
It sounded like a Kraftwerk song. Cool, dude. Beep, boop. So, but can humans think without language?
Yes. Well, how do I know that? Because I'm trying to think of any human that I've ever met that didn't have a language. I mean, I suppose if there's a mute person, or even if deafness would come into it. Um, What the question is, can they communicate without a language, or not
Well,
communicate?
that's the funny thing. Again, I'm saying the question is, can humans think without language?
Think.
Well, we know that you can communicate because you could with well, again, it's how you define the words, but you can communicate with you could go like this. If I ask you a question, you go like that with your hand, which is a gesture for I pass. Or
Right.
you could go, is this a yes or no
Right.
question? Yes or no. So
Or the head back and forth, even
the
though I
head
know in
back
some,
and forth.
I know
Yeah.
in some cultures it's there's this, it means no, and that means yes. I mean, not many, but I think it's true. But I think, no, I think elementally, when I get back to it, let's just say that I am standing there and a mountain lion comes running at me.
Yeah.
I think to myself, I've got to get out of here, and I do it. But I'm not thinking mountain lion coming at me. Those don't know. It's just so in other words, that's a thought. I'm fleeing for my life.
Yep.
I don't need to have a language to describe that. That's
Yeah.
elemental.
Yeah. Our human, it's a stupid question. I know it's both and depends, but just in general, your observations of other humans. Are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
Ooh. Uh, Probably have to go with feelings, but it's like 55 to 45%. I mean, it's not a clear answer at all, because I think
No,
that we
that's very clear, dude. It's 50-50, but because we invented the two words, we think we can say that. But you'll love this one. Bridget Bardot says, "When I make love, I don't think." I'm like, good luck. Like, how do you turn your brain off from thinking? Or people meditate, they go, "I'm thinking about not thinking." So these are two questions from Alan Turing in 1950s. Is thinking a function of the soul?
I would say not. But that's a very interesting question. Function of the soul. It really depends on what you mean by soul. I mean, how can you
Yeah.
even define the soul? Like, everyone has it's like saying you picking out a 64 Crayola colors and saying, this is midnight blue. It's like, no, but not to me. That's more of a teal mixed with a purple.
No, this is fun because Probyn, tell you the truth, I do 4 of these a week. Most people go, what depends on what you mean by the soul? But first you committed and you said, well, no, but then you sussed it out. So I'm fine with either way. But the second Turing question is, can machines think?
I'm going to not go with, depends what you mean by machine or think. Or let me think about this for a minute. Machines, because they are capable of analyzing and going through proscribed things that humans have programmed them, or maybe even taught them. I mean, there is artificial intelligence, and supposedly machines can learn from their mistakes. I have a feeling that thinking is something that is so nuanced that it would be almost impossible for a human being to program that into a machine. So I'm going to say no.
Thank you. Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Meaning, happiness is fleeting. Um, But then again,
There's no,
meaning can change too. Meaning can alter. You know, it's not just your first impression that you always have to go with.
but I got it from Viktor Frankl. He says Man's Search for Meaning, he says happiness is fleeting, meaning can last.
Wow,
So
great minds.
I know, that's like I was gonna say, my stock line for that is there's no right or wrong answers to any of these questions, but that one you got right. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're detecting it, or are we creating it?
Oh. Well, see, I don't think that consciousness is this amorphous cloud that you either enter or don't enter.
Yeah.
It does involve human beings. Now, whether or not the human beings create it, I think the human beings do create it. That's my sort of, I'm trying to get a deeper utterance or thought on that. And I'm not really coming up with one other than that. I don't think that it's, again, when you say detect, it's like it's a third independent party existing outside of humans. I don't think that's true.
Yeah. What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Probably light, because when that's a tough one. I mean, people think pretty fast. People think, and they even speak pretty fast. There's that bit in I think it's the Iliad, Homer, where he's talking about rumor and how rumor spreads. It's like it's faster than giants walking among the clouds. I can't remember the exact quote.
Oh, that's
it's on the back of an album by Focus, one of my favorite rock groups, a Dutch group.
Oh my God!
Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus.
Look at the back of Focus 3. I think it's in Latin, the actual quote.
Yeah.
Or no, it's in English, because that's otherwise. I mean, I speak a tiny amount of Latin, but not enough to have translated that. But anyway, so light or thought. Well, thought's pretty fast, but I think light is faster. I don't know how I come up with that.
But it's beautiful, Probyn, because this is why I do these, because I love to learn that rumors spread faster than giants, the Iliad. Beautiful. Audre Lorde, the poet, says you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Yvonne Rainer responded to her and says, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
The master. See, now I'm thinking all like, we're in the Himalayas and there's a yogi master sitting there. He hasn't eaten for a year. He just exists on air, that kind of thing.
Breatharian, yeah.
The master's house. Wait, the question was what tool? Is that what the?
Yeah, and keep in mind, even though I sometimes open questions with cute quotes, you don't have to apply the quote. It's basically what tool do you gravitate towards, and then you don't have to apply the word new, and then you can apply it to dismantling the master's house. And then that's metaphorical too. Well, what is the master? That guru or some evil corporation, or
right.
Like Frank Zappa said, who are the brain police? He didn't say the brain police. He didn't say the brain police are the evil capitalist consumer guys or the government or the brain police. He said by asking a question, he was saying maybe the brain police are something inside your own head. He didn't. So we don't know her. She's a feminist poet. She probably is saying the master's house is white supremacy. But when I set it up, you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Well, that's a debate.
I mean, the question is, I was thinking of master in a different way, like someone that you wanted to learn from, that kind of master, as opposed to a master, as opposed to an overbearing overlord. You were trying to throw off the shackles.
See, that's what I want you to put the questions into the context you want. So that was perfect.
If I think about it as master, then as I did of someone that was your teacher and someone that you were studying with and wished to be like, well, you don't really have to dismantle the house. I mean, you can look at the whole pagoda and notice the intricacies and the structure and appreciate it. Sure, it'd be great to have all the parts laid out on the ground in order with the instructions from IKEA saying, take, without even English, just like a picture of a guy hitting a peg with a hammer. It would be nice to have all of that, but I don't think it's necessary. I think maybe it's good enough to just look at the master's house and not have to disassemble it, but just enjoy it on its own merits and not worry about any further what's the word I'm thinking of? I'm having an Alzheimer's moment here. Halfzheimer's.
Disassemble it. Disassemble it.
Right, rather than disassemble it anymore. So I don't know. I mean, that's not much of an answer, but
it's also because it reminded me of the great. The guy goes up to his guru and he says, "What's the best question I can ask you?" And the guru goes, "The one you just asked me."
Great.
What new toy do you suggest or gravitate towards? Yeah.
My favorite toy has been ruined by my dog. It's this. Unfortunately, I had to throw them away. They were so chewed up. It's a little handle with a basket on the end, and there's a ping pong ball that goes in there. And you have a friend that has and see, I like this because it involves another person. Because sure, there are toys like a top or what's the name of the thing that goes up and down in your hand, the spinning thing.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Whatever it's called, but yeah, that's cool.
I can't believe I can't remember the name of it. I'm having such a tough year.
Don't
Maybe
worry.
it's COVID. Anyway, so this toy involves two people. There's two handles with baskets, and you click it, and the ball flies through the air. Another person has to angle their body and try to catch it.
Yeah.
For some reason, in the last 5 years, that is my favorite toy.
That is cool. What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Oh, well, it's a little bit like the Brian Wilson song, "This Old World." Late at night, I think about the love of this old world. It's the love, but actually I worry, especially in these more modern political times. I worry about the dissolution of the country, which I used to be into. I was a secessionist for a little bit, and then I didn't want Trump and his people to ruin the country that was doing not so badly. Not that they were the cause of everything. Anyway, we won't get into politics. What do I think about at night? I think globally. Sometimes I send out a little prayer that there should be as much peace as possible in the world, because I firmly believe that if I had Aladdin's lamp and I had one wish left, I would not even wish for peace. I would wish for the abolition of greed. I think that if there was no greed in the world, there would be a lot more peace. If people were just content with the things they had and didn't always want to have one leg up on their fellow person. Anyway,
that's beautiful. Now, McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound, the poet, that artists are the antenna of the race. So artists, I mean painters, musicians, poets, and everybody, are antennas of the race. They broadcast and detect the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, so we might learn to cope with what we don't like about the inventions. Ooh. And so, Probyn, I asked you the question Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
I think we ignore them because it's too much. We can't take it. We're selfish when it comes down to it. I think I think that people don't have enough time in the day to do the things that maybe they either should or would do. I don't know. It's tough. Also, people get lazy. I'm lazy.
Yeah.
I mean, because you could go in any amount of detail to the finest filigree, the 100th level, and there would still be more. It's an endless. It's like a Mandelbrot set or something. That the closer that you get in and look at the paisley, and then there's another You know, once the magnifying glass gets in and you keep on going, and pretty soon we're not even at the computer anymore. Ah!
we're actually in Griffith Park walking your dog and throwing that thing back and forth.
That's right. And mourning P22, who I'm sorry that I never got to see before she died.
Yeah.
You know that you know about that mountain lion that unfortunately.
Oh, that was so sad. Yeah, that's like,
you know what? I used to live in Hollywood for 30 years and I loved Griffith Park. I was there a lot. I got rattled at by more rattlesnakes there than anywhere else.
Well, the other thing you'll love is my friends of historical, you know, icon, historian of Pacific Palisades and everywhere. And I was at the Topanga Film Festival and I says, oh, well, you're supposed to do that. Whose land are we on to honor? You know, you're supposed to say the Tunga or, you know, whatever tribe. And he goes,
right.
We're on the land of the coyotes. They were here before the Indians. And then I look back and he didn't even know it. The logo for the Topanga Film Festival is a coyote.
Wow.
Coyotes, like, come on, they were here before. Anyways, do artists have moral obligation?
To whom?
Yeah, see, you're answering a question with a question. You win, Probyn. That's what it's all about. It's inventing new questions. Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to honor the spirit of how moral obligation. I don't think so.
Yeah, see, that's again a right answer because everybody goes, well, they have a moral obligation to themselves, and everybody has a moral obligation. But artists are supposed to like do something that make us think, or, you know, or not have to.
Supposed to. I mean, shoot. I mean, I don't really write that much, but I have a few short stories and whatever, and I like them, and you know, it gets my yayas out. I mean, I'm a really musician, but I was an English major in college, and I like writing things, but I haven't written anything for 2 years now. So someone, I mean, more obligation, shoot, I haven't, or same thing, songs. I haven't written a song for like also over a year. And not that I ever wrote that many. I'm mostly a side guy. I'm like an accompanist more than an actual creative artist. Like we were talking before about my old roommate, Rich Ferguson. That guy is a creative artist. It's like, he can't stop it as far as I know. I can. I do stop it. I stop all the time.
Listen, we're going to get into music really quick. A few more philosophical. Are you more afraid of new ideas or old ideas?
I'm more afraid of old ideas because there's a lot more power in older ideas. They've stood the test of time. People have cogitated upon them and found them either lacking or the veritas. They felt the gravity of the truth in there. And so when one of those comes up to me and it's something I don't like, I can't try to think of one right now, but I think that old ideas that have already been pondered and the kinks worked out, those scare me a little more, even though some of them could be to my benefit. But newer ideas, those are easy to shoot down. Oh, look, there's one there. I'm going to take my gun. Boom, he's gone.
Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
Oh, sure. My two earliest memories are, the first one was in Claremont, California. I'm probably 4, and I'm standing at the window looking at an ice cream truck going by, and I want one. I'm pointing to it, but no adult is in the room. So I'm trying to communicate that I would like them to hail the truck and get me an ice cream because I've seen it happen. I know it. So that's number one. Number 2 is the more interesting one. I come out of my house, also in Claremont, about the same age, and my tricycle is a twisted wreck because the frat boys who live right next door had ridden it drunkenly in the night and ruined it. Luckily, as my mother tells me, the neighbors ratted them out, and they bought me a new tricycle. I have no memory of the new tricycle. All I remember is seeing the wreck of my tricycle out front of my own stoop at my house.
Amazing. Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Well, I mean, I've suffered in my own life with memories of people that my dad was a faculty. He was a professor. So I was a faculty brat. We moved around a lot. And as a result, every 2 years, I'd be in some new place. Orono, Maine, Claremont, California, Palo Alto, California. We were in Minnesota for a breath, New Hampshire most of the time. Anyway, I would think about people that I would never see again, especially girls that I had, developed crushes on, and I would cry myself to sleep at night. And this was,
Oh,
I was wasting time thinking about people that I was never going to see again. In that
oh,
way, memory was a curse, and that actually dogged me till I was about 14. And then I burnt that circuit out, couldn't do it anymore. So I said, none of this self-pitying, romanticized past bullshit. I can't do that anymore. I've got to be in the now and grow and develop. I mean, come on. I don't know. That's
dude,
not much of a, that's not
you're
much
my
of an
hero.
answer to the question.
But no, that's quite a thing for a 14-year-old to come up with. You're anticipating a question down the road. Okay, just briefly tell me one person within your immediate family, then outside your immediate family, who had an impact on you, kind of like a role model. And what specifically was that impact?
In my family, that was my mother. My
What
mother was.
What did you mainly get from your mom?
I got from my mom that you've got to do the right thing and act on your convictions. I mean, she spent time in prison for her teaching people how to do what's it called when they let you be dragged away rather than that you sort of go limp. It's a conscientious objection, but it's not that. There's the phrase for the I'm sorry, having a bad morning here.
But it's political activism, you mean?
Political activism. Yeah, my mother was very active, had an FBI file on her for a while for her anti-Vietnam activities. And then, as I say, spent time in prison for disobeying a court order about her anti-nuclear things. She did nothing violent. She was training people to be non-violent. Anyways, and she's been gone for many years now, but she had a big impact on me as like a role model. I'm really glad that she ended up with me. Outside of the family, I would say that would be David Bloom, who was my mentor. He was a editor at the LA Times and a fabulous musician. He finished up, I forget, which is the film and which is the TV show, Taxi and Taxi Driver. The film one, Bernard Herrmann was the composer. He died during the when he was composing the music. And so Bernard Herrmann is a real name, as you may know in music circles. David was chosen to finish up the score. So that was one of his.
Oh my God. He finished Bernard Herrmann?
He also co-wrote It's a Turn Down Day for the Circle. It's a turn down day, nothing on my mind.
He wrote
anyway, he was the husband of our old family friend Carolyn Hester, who was a folk legend from the 60s.
Oh, I know. Carolyn Hester's huge, yeah.
Yeah, so they lived in Hollywood near when I first moved to LA, and he would have me come up and do either yard work or sometimes help him. He hired me for music things. He had me play bass and guitar and stuff that he once told me, I could have gotten Larry Carlton to come and do this, but I saw you do this one move once on the guitar, and I want that on my song.
My God, that is so cool.
I said to him, you picked me over Larry Carlton?
Dude, that is really a great story. And the beauty is you don't come up as a bragger. You're like, I was amazed that happened, but you did it, man. And he had the smarts. But I mean, Bernard Herrmann is like the Godhead. If you ask anybody about music and movies and they don't say Bernard Herrmann, the first one, you like, go, okay, sorry, you don't get it. Because, so that was really cool for him. Okay, so did your parents raise you a particular religion?
I was raised as a Quaker.
Wow.
So we had to.
Never says that. That's heavy.
And I don't know if you know about the modern day Friends. They call themselves the American Friends Service Committee. That's more of the political action arm of the group. One of the reasons I was raised Quaker is that my mother wanted that was one of the few religions that you could list. And if you were a dues paying member, which I was, you wouldn't get drafted into the war. You could say, I'm going to be driving, instead of going and being in the army and killing someone, I'm going to be driving the Red Cross truck or behind the scenes. I'll contribute to the effort, but I won't be involved in violence or killing. That's out.
It's beautiful. But I would have loved to meet your mom because I was I was weaned on the philosophy of the Berrigan brothers, and I'm sure she was tuned into that. And I went to this like hippie dude in Flint, Michigan, and he taught me how to brainwash 4 old men to say I was a conscientious objector. I mean, it sounds like a scam, but it's basically, he taught me how to word it. I was raised a Roman Catholic, not to kill people. I cannot do this. And they go, okay, you're a conscientious objector. And it was
Right, right.
really about social engineering these 4 old men, and I got trained to do it. I mean, it was amazing. So do you pray?
Yes, but not in the conventional sense. I'm not really a Christian anymore.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more of a pantheist, or I take on some of the trappings of the Native American, the 6 directions, north, south, east, west, grandfather sky, grandmother earth. That
Yeah.
makes more sense to me. That makes a lot of sense to me. Me in the natural world. And what I really like about that, it took me years to figure it out, was if you have those 6 directions, the up, down, 4 points of the compass, that's 6.
Yeah.
I, standing in the middle, make number 7. Well, number 7 is my favorite number, and it's always been a number that I've been attracted to. It's even in my birthday. My birthday is 7/27 of 57. You add up the numbers that aren't 7, they equal 7. So,
Oh my God. Then you're the 7th. The
but
6 directions into the 7th is you. Yeah, that's
right.
amazing.
But I do pray, and if there
Yeah.
is an over governing great spirit or whatever,
Yeah.
I would like to beseech it to help people out, help living creatures out, help the world heal, help there to be less pain, more joy if there could possibly be. I think that's a good use of my time. I do it every night when I walk the dog. I send
It's
out that prayer.
beautiful. So beautiful, because you anticipate the next question. If God does exist, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
Wow. Say to me. Well, I don't think it would just occur to me in my mind probably. But I have a song called "I Send Up My Prayer," and then it goes, "I send up my prayer past the astronauts to anything that's there, and to anyone who cares. When a loving venture goes down in flames, why does it have to be? Where once were tender wings are scales of steel." So I think I would like to know why. What would I want God to say to me? I would like to know if mankind has really made any progress, because my feeling is that it hasn't made any progress
Yeah.
probably since the dawn of time. So I'd like to get God's answer. Has humanity made
Yeah.
any of the progress that, I mean, I can't imagine that does God have hopes that God hopes mankind would have made?
Beautiful. Probyn, what really touching me deep in my heart and soul. I appreciate that, because I used to ask this question: is human progress more cyclical or cumulative? And really, you
Huh.
sort of nailed it. It's probably a cone, and it goes up sometimes and down. So we're going in circles, but it's sort of like, well, it's getting better, it's getting worse. Because who knows? Pinker says we're less violent now than ever. And so, that could be true, but it seems like, you used to only get shot at the post office. Now you get killed at Trader Joe's. It's like horrible.
Yeah, I mean the modern thing with the guns. I saw that video of the guy stopping his car in the fast lane the other day and running back and beating the car of the person behind him
Oh,
with a pipe, even though what it looked like was that the person with the pipe was the one that cut off the person that he then hit his car. I'm like, so you do the injury, and then you add insult and injury by then continuing to. I didn't make any sense. Anyway, we won't go into that.
But you anticipate. Next question is, do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
Well, evil. I mean, as I said before about consciousness, I don't think there's like a cloud of evilness. In that way, I don't believe in the devil. I mean,
Yeah.
like the devil being the personification, actively going out and trying to recruit people. Bullshit. I say
Yeah.
evil is something that is born of mankind and doesn't exist as a third independent party. I guess I used those same words before. I'm trying not to repeat myself.
No, that's all right, because it's really like this, Probyn. How do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I set up with a few modern thinkers. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. The basic question is how do you, Probyn, advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
Acknowledge them. I think there's truth in that. I haven't had that many enemies in my life, but I found that if it was like an energy vampire. If I spent too much time thinking about them, that was taking away from things that I wanted to do. So that was an additional injury. Injury. That was something that I didn't want to do. So I tried to focus on what I'm doing and not let the enemy's actions. On the other hand, what of the list that you just gave me, was it JFK that said the one about remember their name? Forgive, but remember their name?
Yeah. That's
I'm more into that. I'm more into trying to forgive, because there's, you know what? I'm not perfect. There's probably all kinds of things worth disliking about me, maybe even hating. Or maybe I represent something that is a button push in that person's own life, something they grew up with their parents or a friend, some past thing that never got solved. And I'm just the current manifestation of that. And so I'm an easy target. I'm the enemy. You know, I understand that could easily be true. But I don't think it's worth my time. I don't think it's worth my time to waste a lot of time thinking about how I'm going to deal with my enemy. Of course, if they're after me with a weapon, I have to evade, and I don't know how I'm going to talk them down. But
no, it's heavy. James Joyce was the first. That was really good. James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin. He basically checked out. He said, this is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree? Years later, Faulkner said sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Because real life is too complicated to control. If you're in a movie theater looking at a movie about a tree, you can choose to leave the movie theater, not have to deal with the tree if it frightens you or represents something. Also, it's sometimes the real thing is too much. I remember I was a big fan and am a big fan of Todd Rundgren. The first time I ever saw him in concert, it was too much for me. I couldn't even look at him, honestly.
Wow.
But the lights were casting a shadow of him on the wall, and so I looked at his shadow, and that I could deal with, because that was sort of a dumbed down, less volatile, less complicated version, like a shadow of the man. I could deal with that. So I looked for and then eventually, having looked at the shadow for like 15 minutes or something, I then was able to just creep back and really actually look at him in fully, 100% in real life, with all the mystery and things that conveyed.
Unbelievable. That's so beautiful. I love it. It really resonates with me. I saw that painter Francis Bacon, and I put up his postcards, you know, the guy who affected David Lynch, and clippings from his art all over my room. And then I saw a show at the Tate, or the big museum in London, and the paintings were like huge. And I looked and I go, ah, and I ran out of the museum. I couldn't take it.
That's funny, because that happened to me in the other respect. I was in Madrid at the Prado, and I went to see, they had a Hieronymus Bosch, the Garden of Earthly Delights, his most famous thing that he ever did.
Yeah.
It's like 2 feet tall. I was like, oh my God. So all the stuff I've been seeing in art books are miniatures. He was just working within 1/2 inch. That blew me away.
But we should do, you know, I do these salons with 5 or 6 or 8 people. We should do one on Todd. I would love that. Because I asked one of his guitarists all these questions just about 2 or 3 months ago. He was really, I mean, we didn't really talk about Todd a lot. We did these, but I mean, Todd's amazing musician, really touched me.
Was that Jesse Gress, maybe?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it was him. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's probably him. So what now finally we can get into music. What was the tipping point for you to pursue music as your calling? So as you're growing up, what are you hearing around the house? Is it live music or on whatever format? And then at what point you go, I want to play this and where I want to do this? What's your tipping point?
Wow. Because I always was playing. Apparently, when I was a boy, if according to my parents, if I would hear the sound like a door squeaking, I would, with my throat, I would try to go, and it got sort of annoying that I was this mimic. I was what they call it in German a papagei, which is like a repeating parrot. Polly wants a cracker. Polly wants a cracker. You know, that kind of thing. So I was doing that, and then I was lucky enough to be in Palo Alto when they were handing out band instruments in the 4th grade, which is a little earlier than most of the places. Like the next year, I moved to New Hampshire in the 5th grade. They were just starting the flutophone, you know, which wasn't even the real instrument. So I was always interested in music, and my parents did play a lot of music. They were sort of hippies. So we were playing
live. We're playing it live around the house, or both live and
no. My parents weren't really musicians, but they both played a little bit of recorder, but not really, not that often with other people. Not that I could tell. But I was addicted to the radio, top 40. You know, I got one of those little transistor radios when I was 9, and 1965, or I guess I was 8, because I remember hearing California Girls and going, "Oh my God. What I feel so different when I hear this song. It completely changes my head when I hear the intro of this song. Yeah. I am transported instantly, over and over, not just the first time, every time."
Totally. So, and then the theremin in that other Good Vibrations theremin, like,
oh sure,
what did that do to our heads hearing a theremin out of pop radio? That was heavy.
Exactly. So I mean, I can't say that was the tipping point. I mean, that sort of started me thinking that music was something. Well, when I would hear songs like "Kind of a Drag" by the Buckinghams on the radio with the trumpets, or the Love, the Alone Again, or all that sort of, Spanish style toreador trumpet stuff, I thought, hey, wow, someone made money on this. It's possible. It's possible to make a living at this. Now, I didn't think I was capable of that for many years. Like, I sort of quietly and shyly played guitar in high school. I didn't want anyone to know, although my mother, sometimes when she'd have these parties, she'd get a little drunk and she'd say, "Well, my son can play guitar. Let's get him down here." I'm like, "Oh, no. So I was very shy about that kind of thing. But so, I mean, the real tipping point, I guess, was I was at Oberlin College as an English major, taking as many courses at the conservatory as I could, still not thinking that it was viable to really make my living at it. And my friend and roommate at the time, Wiley Elson, made tapes of me playing along with, like, I don't know, Frank Zappa or Steely Dan or something, doing my best, not really playing along, but, learning as I go. And he made tapes of this and sent it to Berklee School of Music and this place called Guitar Institute of Technology in Hollywood as audition tapes. And I was accepted at both places. I mean, I got these letters and he was around and I said, "What's this?" He said, "Oh, I meant to tell you, I made these secret tapes of you playing, and without telling you, I paid the audition fee and for these schools, because I know that you don't know what you're doing after college," which is true. I did not know what I was doing after college. So once I got out there, I decided that I was going to go to GIT, which I did, and that was a year's program in 1980. And once I was out there, then I saw that in Los Angeles, people were actually making a living making music. Guys my age, like in top, sometimes there's top 40 or wedding bands, but that was also around the time of My Sharona. And everyone that I knew was like, "You mean people like us can get signed to a record deal? Oh my God." So I'm sorry, this is a long-winded answer.
No, that was good, because you know who I asked recently too, one of my heroes, you probably know him, Ira Ingberg. He got signed when he was 16.
Wow.
That is so
amazing.
Cool Did know, and his brother Elliot Ingber. So, anyways, let's get right down to it.
Okay.
A screenwriting teacher told me a great film or great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Stanley Kubrick says the opposite. Great film, great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play when you're writing a Probyn Gregory song? You're not hired to do this. You're not a sideman. You're writing your own song. What role does intention play in your creative process?
Wow. A lot of the times when I'm in the situation that you outline, I am like a lot of artists, just doing it for myself. I'm not thinking about my audience or if there is even going to be one. I just need to get this thing out. It's in me, or I'm the conduit for, I've been vouchsafed something from the higher power.
Yeah.
And I'm just, it's coming, I'm the vessel, it's coming through me. But it's not like I'm thinking about who's going to listen to this. Will they like a major 7 chord here? Or will they not like this sort of piquant diminished that I've briefly put in because I like it? But maybe I've got to worry about my buying public. If I was crass commercialist, I would be thinking, well, I'll sell less units if I put in that piquant diminished chord. But philosophically about the intent, I think that art can exist without intent. Like I sometimes, as in my hikes, come across a tableau in front of me, a vista. It's beautiful. It's art. It's in my mind. It's a photo. It's a painting. It's God's gift to me. It is art. I feel like it's art, and not just a feeling that's passing through me. I feel like it deserves the sobriquet or heavy moniker of capital A art.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it's beautiful. You answered the second part of the question. Is Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much do you think of how much do you think of your listener when you're writing your song? So you answered that, but I do have to tell you 2 quick anecdotes that I love. Reverend Al, he started Flipside magazine, the music mag in LA. He said, don't sell out, sneak in.
That's great. I love that.
Well, that is a great one. But Paul Schrader, the guy who wrote Taxi Driver, he said the role of the artist is to attempt to sell out but fail. But that one's a little more deep because you can laugh at it, but it's like, I'm so pure of an artist that I tried to sell out, but I couldn't because it's too pure, because you do, like Zappa would say, I only write, like you did, I write this music for myself, and if other people like it, great. But Frank was raised in a capitalistic consumer culture, and he knew if he hit this note or this lyric that kids would buy his music, then he could play more music. He was like romanticizing it, and that's fine because you really anticipated this question. 2 of my film heroes say there is no self-expression, and Cecil Taylor says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. So again, it's a stupid question and you sort of went into it, but I'm curious your thoughts. Is art making, music making more self-expression, or more you're a vehicle for whatever technologies, cultures, and environments are dominant?
I think I would like to think that I was expressing myself, but I think without being able to control it, I am de facto a conduit of my influences and predispositions that I've followed for many years. Sometimes I try not to be. For instance, when I was writing more songs, people would say to me, "Oh, that's so Todd Rundgren," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, he was huge to me, and he's one of my big influences, but I can't hear it." And they're like, "Oh yeah, I hear it. Look, this song you did that, and that's you borrowed from there." I'm like, "Oh wow, I didn't even realize it." But
that's heavy.
So I think sometimes you delude yourself into thinking that I'm free. I am the person who's making this, and it's like I think it's very difficult to remove yourself from your past and from the things that have been an influence. And again, you may think that you've done something clean and new, and someone else will hear it and say, "Ah, I hear the footprint of insert artist A here.
Yeah.
So
No, it's well put, Probyn. Harold Bloom teaches us in Anxiety of Influence, you absorb your influence, then you abandon them. Yeah, good luck. Because when Frank Zappa was dying at the end of his life, he brought over, Keneally, and they played all his old 45s that he grew up on, the greasy LA doo-wop. And he
sure.
goes, hear that part right there? That's where I got this part for this song. I mean, we've psychoanalyzed it and we've figured out a lot of them, but he was laying it out right there going, that's where I got that part. That's where I got that part, and you can't always tell, but it's like
Right.
the hidden question really is, Probyn, can art making, music making be egoless?
Egoless. Wow. I've always have a hard time with the concept of ego. I can't detect where it begins and ends in myself.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of given up. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on something that's just going to make me unhappy and feel stupid.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we get it sort of from this Freud world. And then 90% of people go, can art making be egoless? They go, no. And then about a year ago, a woman said, great art is egoless. And then about a month ago, a woman said, it has to be egoless. And so it really depends on what you mean by ego, because
Right.
it's a funny thing. So let's go on to my friend says the 3 T's of music: technique, theory, and taste. You know how to play something, what chord or a scale, blah blah blah. How does one acquire taste?
Well, by listening and by that's a good one, because it's going to be through the filter of you. I mean, that's very subjective. Taste is, I think, because some people would say too many notes, Mozart, and someone else might say, oh, that was a beautiful phrase that you expressed there. I'm just pulling one name out of the hat, Alan Holdsworth, who was a guitar player who is well known for playing blistering solos, and yet I always thought that his chord work and behind like his supporting stuff was more appealing to me, because it was too much information. It was too many notes, Mozart. He was playing so quickly I couldn't even take it all in, even upon repeated listenings. So anyway, so it's subjective. Taste. Everyone's taste is different. I mean, we can all. I don't say all. That's stupid. Many people agree on the quality of certain artists that have made their fame. Pat Metheny's style of guitar playing. I happen to love it. It's not for everyone, but there enough people say that it's great that I guess he not only moves units, but he's not reviled. He's in a rarefied company. People throw him up there with the greats. A lot of these questions have to do with the definition of the word taste, and I don't want to get into that sort of either or sort of.
You covered a lot there, because I saw Alan a week before he died in a little club in Venice, and his band members were like this, and then he'd go and at least he stopped a little, and there was some fucking dynamics. And I mean, anyways, we could go on. We should do a whole salon on guitars.
Yeah. No, it happened again. Hold on, it happened again.
Okay.
And it did it in both ears. I touched one ear thing, and both of them are now playing music. Hold on.
Is it holds?
I got it.
Yeah.
So this is a bad design. If I touch the outside of it, it switches to some other mode. That is bad. If these were brand new, I would return them.
But it's like either Pat Metheny or Alan Holdsworth or Todd. You got your choice of 3 guitarists while we're talking. Because I could go on, because Pat covered Ornette on his first album. Then he's probably the biggest respected with all the Berkeley kids. Now I work with these young guitarists, and they all say Pat. And I goes, I hate his fucking tone. It's so yuppie jazz, but he's a great player. And he played Ornette and he played fucking Carnegie Hall. And everybody came because they thought they were going to get nice jazz. And he was playing with Ornette and the whole crowd laughed. You know, it's like, how could you walk out on Ornette? You know?
Sure. No, once we're off the, not on the zoo anymore, I'll tell you my little story about Holdsworth and Stanley Clark, which is an instructive story, but I won't waste time now.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's amazing because this is the follow-up question on the word taste, because again, everybody says by exposure, listening, but it is deeper. And you knew that. You said listening. Then you go, well, it is different because the word taste has something to do with our gut. You know, you're back to intuition.
Right.
McLuhan says song is slowed down speech. The reason cultures have different musical taste is ultimately connected to language difference. Any comment? And I'll say the statement again if you want.
Language difference. My gut is that that's bullshit. Language difference. I mean, because people like music regardless of the, I mean, you could be in the same way that like old operas, they're in Italian. Which child that doesn't already speak Italian and hasn't grown up as a multilingual family, I couldn't even make the words didn't even make sense from a, like, you know, I can't even get the root of the word. So it's all, and anyway, forget about opera.
Because we learned opera. I mean, kids my age, I'm a little older. I was born in 53. We learned opera from Mighty Mouse cartoons.
Right.
That's where we first heard opera. And so
or Bugs Bunny with the Barber of Seville with that chair going up into the clouds.
Oh, thank God for Carl Stalling and Raymond Scott. I mean, those guys.
I love those guys. Love them.
Those guys tweaked our musical taste till the end. And I always say, have you ever watched a Bugs Bunny cartoon with your eyes shut? And people go, what do you know? Because you don't hear the music. It's so integrated, you don't realize there's two things going on there. But I think it's interesting because, you know, the tuba throat singers, I love them deeply. They were in the Rose Bowl parade and on Johnny Carson, and they sang about three things. I mean, when I hear them, it's like transcendental and transformation. And when they sing about three things, their boots, snow, and their horses. But
that's because that stuff is very important to their lives.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to get around with the boots and the horses, and if they have to deal with snow, I mean, that's elemental. I'm happy to, I would be happy to only sing about those three things too. Or maybe it would be a different three with me. It would be like my trumpet, maybe my car, and I don't know what else. I can't think of it, but
here's Aaron Copland's 4 ingredients of music are melody, harmony, rhythm, and tone color. So basically, briefly, how do you navigate those? Are you like more of a, when you're writing a song, or your tendency to love a certain type of music is because of one of those elements, how they're integrated? How do you integrate and navigate those 4 elements: melody, harmony, rhythm, and tone color?
Wow. I mean, I recognize that those are 4 separate things, but they kind of all have to go together. I would add another one, which would be not so much intent, but if you can do it, if you're in a live performance, then you can also add the sort of 4th wall element where you're trying to project yourself. You're putting a little bit of you out into the audience and hoping to make a dialogue between you and the audience. And that is, I think, an important part for any live person. But how do I navigate I don't know. That's a good question. It just sort of, without being consciously aware of it, it just happens. And if I like it, I'll keep on that path. And if I don't like it, I'll alter one of those. I mean, it's usually the what was that? The tone color, was that your 4th one?
Tone color is Copland's 4th. Yeah.
Yeah, that's more for like orchestras, and well, not necessarily. You can get a lot of colors out of a string trio.
Well, anyways, that was good. You know, Monk says there are no wrong notes. Any comment?
I agree with that. But you know, if people choose to remain in a 4/4 C major Western tonality, then if you're playing by those rules, then maybe there are wrong notes. But if you're a freer player like Monk, or as you say, Don Cherry or Ornette Beyond, um, and any sound. I mean, look at Cage, 4 minute and 33 seconds. You know that piece?
Of course.
The, for people that don't know, it's really written for piano. So you come to the piano, you lift the lid up and sit down. You're prepared to play, but you don't actually play. There's no notes sounded on the piano. What the piece consists of is the sounds that are in the listener's ears: passing fire truck, dog barking, someone coughing in the theater, that sort of thing. And it's 3 movements, so it's pretty long.
Yeah.
I actually did this for guitar once at a coffee house, and I got people were pelting me with stuff and yelling, and no one could take it. It's 4 minutes and 30. I mean, it's one thing to endure that for like 30 seconds, but for 4 minutes and 33 seconds, that's a lot to ask of an audience to not engage in some sort of active, you know, thing with back and forth with the artist. But I thought it was a great. Oops, my earpiece fell out again. God, these things don't fit.
But Probyn, you know, that piece charted on the English pop charts about 15 years ago.
Are you serious?
I am serious. You can look it up. And also the Bulgarian Women's Choir charted on the English pop charts. So it tells you more about the English pop charts than it does about anything. But no, it is a very important music. In fact, you're touching on the next question is Miles Davis talks about the space between notes. In fact, George Clinton and Bootsy say funk is the absence of. How do you navigate? How do you know dynamics in your music playing and composing the space between notes? How do you deal with that?
That's always a tough one, especially as a solo person. Like if I'm thinking about me going out either as a coffee house act, which I don't really do much anymore, or just me without a team of players, then it becomes a lot harder to sort of get away with the silence. Well, I'm calling it silence, but as you say, or as Miles says, the space between notes. I'm thinking right now about a song by that same group Focus that I like. There's a guitar player, Jan Ackerman, in a song called Red. There's a song called Red Sky at Night that was unreleased from the mid 70s. And at one point he plays a little sort of classical sounding phrase, and then he lets the next one pass with nothing. There's like 6 or 8 beats, nothing. I thought that was genius, because anyone else would have said, I've got something to say, I'm going to put it in there. And he said, I'm going to let you imagine what might be here. And he just shuts up. I thought, that's music. That's deep. That is deep.
Totally deep. Totally. It's like with Jeff Beck passing, you know, I became a guitarist because of Ain't Superstition on that album, where he goes ba-dum, ba-dum, bum, bum. It's like, dude, I can play that. You know, that and Dirty Water were the first 2 songs guys my age learned. You know,
sure.
So this is Ben Ratliff, music writer. Actually, it's in the Bill Frisell book he just put out. I mean sound, as it has long functioned among jazz players as a mystical term of art, as in every musician finally needs a sound, a full and sensible embodiment of their artistic personality, such that it can be heard at best in a single note. So me and you could hear Miles, then we go, that's Miles. And he says, oh, Miles is fragile and pointed. He says Coltrane is slightly undercooked and urgent. If a music writer that you truly respect nailed the Probyn Gregory sound in a couple words, what would you feel honored? Like, that guy got it. I mean, literally, it's not an ego like thing here. It's like that. If it's taking Probyn's sound and putting it in a couple words, what would you feel they got it?
Wow. Um, I would have to say humorous, and I guess the second word would be quirky. I don't know. That's a really tough one to answer because I mean, depending on the piece that I'm
Yeah.
playing or how
Oh,
what I'm laying out. But I mean, if you're talking about just like one or two notes where it's kind of out of context, but supposedly your soul is in those notes, how would I want to be remembered? I guess I have to say that either humor or funny I would like to be known for that, even though I mean,
good.
shoot, I've written songs about suicide in which there's
Yeah.
not one funny note. So
Well,
uh,
dude, back to Frank Zappa, great album title. Does humor belong in music? He's not saying it does, and his whole fucking career was trying to be Spike Jones, but he asked the question, does humor? So you have ESP because the next question is, tell me an instrumental that makes you laugh. And it can't be Spike Jones because he mainly is a guy who sings
sure,
songs.
instrumental. Oh shoot, I was just because it's so filled with sound. I was going to say Onomatopoeia by Todd Rundgren because he says he's talking about his a girl that he's infatuated with, and he says she makes me feel kind of, and then he makes a keyboard make the sound. It's kind of then he has it's kind of eat squawk and but it's not an instrumental. He is speaking in the song.
Yeah.
Oh boy, instrumental wise that makes me laugh. They all seem to have words in them, the ones I'm thinking of.
Well, that was a good example. We can go on. You email
Shoot,
me a more if it comes.
I'll think about it and get back to you.
Right. But it's beautiful that you brought up Todd. It was a good example of it because Todd, the beauty of Todd too is that he came out of Gilbert and Sullivan and he loves
Right,
to say it. And it's just like, whoa. But he didn't fucking become a Gilbert and Sullivan clone. You could see he took it to another level. He abandoned them. And it's
right.
like, but what's more fundamental, language or music?
Music to
Man.
me. It won't be for everyone, but to me it is. And there's nothing wrong with language, but in fact, I mean, I think of music as it's not really. It's kind of a language, but it's almost beyond like it's a form of communication. See, I don't think of language as a form of communication. I think of language as the way you express ideas from one person to another. But if you're talking about going in and out, I mean, I guess speaking is out and listening is in, but I still think of music as being more fundamental. I mean, you don't even have to speak the language. You can play some phrase and it'll make people feel maybe not the way you intended, but it makes them feel stuff. It draws you out. Mere spoken language, if I think of language in that way as a speaking platform, it's not as powerful. It's not as deep to me.
And Probyn, it's funny because I ask all these questions. I want the person to answer it the way they want to answer it. I want to be enlightened to all these. But I do love it when someone answers all the questions I want it to be answered that way. But I can't put it into my words when someone else like you puts the answer into your words and I go, that's how I feel. That's what's really heavy. I think about communication. It's like Bob Dylan said, don't ever tell anyone everything you know. So, like, if I met you at a party and we started talking and we got off in a corner for an hour and did this, I would want you to tell me everything you know because I would I got to tell you everything I know because you're listening and we're gelling. It's like a jazz jam. So T.S. Eliot said that poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in? You sort of talked about earlier, you have this inner voice, interior landscape. What language is that in?
You mean like English? You mean that kind of language, or?
Well, that's taking it too literally. I'm asking metaphorically, really. So when people say
Mm.
English, I usually go, what form is your inner consciousness in?
That's actually, I can't even quite grok that enough to give you an answer. Honestly,
That's fine.
I've been water way over my head, and there's a shark circling. I'm getting a little scared, Jerry. I'm getting scared.
Listen, this is my favorite answer is Abigail Childs, this experimental filmmaker in New York. I asked her, what language is your inner dialogue? And she goes, I wish I knew.
Well, that's what I'm essentially saying. I'm
That is a
completely
great
I'm
answer.
wandering in a fog.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, because people would say that it's like TV commercials, or they'll go, yeah, TV theme songs, or my mother complaining, or blah, blah, blah. So what was the motive of the cave artist? And keep in mind that unique thing is we don't really have cave music or cave dance
Right.
documented, but we do have cave art. But of all those, what was their motive? What's your guess or hunch?
Okay, my guess or hunch was that it was not ego driven, that it was not like, hey, look at me, I want to be like the pharaohs and be remembered 1,000 years from now. I don't think that was it. I think it was didactic. I think they were teaching people about either the nuts and bolts of here's how you chase down deer and with a spear and or trap them in a dead end canyon, or it was to uh, uh, instruct in ways not quite so plain, but in
Yeah.
sort of in emotional way, like maybe to say, this image makes me sad. I'm going to draw this elephant, this mastodon that I once saw that I was unable to kill because it was too big and I didn't have the right spear. And so I'm sad, either that or just the very existence of the mastodon made me feel a certain way. And I have to record that on the wall. But I really
Yeah.
don't think it had, for some reason, I'm convinced that it didn't have anything to do with, look at me, the great artist. That when I'm
Yeah.
dead, they'll remember me by my handprint on the wall.
Yeah. Beautiful. What's more important, conviction or compromise?
Hmm. My gut is to say conviction, but I feel that's the easy way out. I'm thinking about this. Um, I think if you're in a team, you compromise is more important. If it's just you acting alone, I think conviction is more important.
Really touching because of what you told me about your mom. You know, she was convicted, but she probably knew compromise. It's a heavy, that's it,
That
you know,
yes, convicted for your convictions. I never thought of that.
yeah, no. Walter Bard says the conviction to compromise. That's what's more important than it. But my favorite answer actually was, what's more important, conviction or compromise? Guy goes, depends on what you mean by important.
Yes,
That was such a flip.
that's
And
good. That's good.
Roy Zimmerman, his kids are 8
Yeah.
years old. I asked them, and I says, they go, those words are too big for us. That's you'll love this, the history of that. That's my first question I got obsessed with 40 years ago, from Christine McKenna. Like a lot of my questions are from Christine McKenna.
Wow.
And this one's a funny one, but I changed it. In your You've accomplished a lot. In your accomplishments, how do you rate these three elements? Luck, skill, and ambition. What played the biggest role, second and third?
Luck seems to have played the biggest role. I would say skill was the second, and I have almost no ambition other than my very long ago one of sort of generally wanting to get signed by a record label, which is now, that very phrase marks me as an old person, because that sort of thing doesn't really exist anymore. I mean, I
Right.
suppose that
Yeah, you're lucky you didn't, because as Frank Zappa said, in order to be in the music business, you have to sell your cock and your balls. So I asked this guy, he's the male version of Lana Del Rey, and I
uh-huh.
was talking to him, And I said, so, you know, you're like 20 years old. You're a fucking superstar. What do you think of the music business? He goes, oh, it's interesting. I goes, interesting. That's a wimpy word. And then I told him the Zappa quote, and he goes, I says, you got to sell your cock and your balls. And he goes, gee, I thought you only had to sell your soul.
Which is more important, the cock and balls or the soul?
Well, yeah, I better put that. I better write that question down right now in my survey. What's more important? Is perception reality?
It's your reality. Well,
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that. No, people, I mean, you perceive things, but if you have a brain on your shoulders, you learn that not all things are as they appear at first glance. Although I do, as I have said before, I put a lot of store in the gut instinctual reaction that my body is somehow able to know more than my brain is. I mean, if you say perceive, is it my five senses? Do I see it, or is it a gut reaction which is beyond me, almost unconscious? I trust that more. I trust that immediate perception more than I do the five senses, and especially if we're talking about rote things. Like I see a car going down the street. It says Volkswagen on the side. Do I know? Does that mean that there's a Volkswagen engine under the hood? I don't know. It said Volkswagen. So anyway, and that's not a very good answer, but
no, it is, because it's percept versus concept. This is the main thing. McLuhan probing human inventions was concepts like a con job. It cons you into believing that's the way things are. Nothing is the way it is. It's all in flux. Percept is gut, intuition, impulse. That's, you know, and we probably operate more in a perceptual level, but we try to convince ourselves that concepts work. You know, T.S. Eliot said, I got to use words when I talk to you. It's like, no, you don't. So a few more and we're out of here. This has really been fun. Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength, rather than we're usually taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
Okay, it's funny. I keep on coming back to this one thing. Although I don't want to, because I don't think of it as a weakness. When I was younger and I watched, and I had crushes on girls, I watched how boys dealt with girls and their success rates of various approaches, and it always seemed that the people that got the relationships that they wanted and that had a little more longevity were the men that weren't being macho and were listening a lot and were being, if I was a younger person, I was a younger me, and it was years ago, I would say my more female side. I think that's bullshit now. So I'm throwing that out in modern context. But so it's not like I was trying to be a woman, but I was bringing my more sensitive side to bear. And so I did this, or I tried to do this as much as I could with the first women that I went out with, or, you know, had a more emotional or sexual attachment with. It didn't always work, but it has over the long term. And again, it's not a weakness. So
that's all right. The word weakness doesn't have to dominate. We call it, how do you turn a breakdown into a breakthrough, a rejection into a redirection? So there's many words for it, but, you know, society might go, dude, you're not being macho. So you explained it well, but how many years?
Go on.
No, go ahead. You go.
All right. I'll just finish up by saying, so, I mean, that actually, and that approach ended up sort of working for me overall in more moderated forms. I think once I became a little more self-confident, which I was very much not self-confident during junior high and high school, and it was in college that I started to, when I was really among intellectual and emotional peers, which I felt that I had not been by and large in high school, although I don't mean to demean any of my high school friends who may be watching this and go, hey, I'm chopped liver. Anyway, But it just so happened that I was in college. I blossomed and I became more confident in who I was, and so I could insert shades of these sort of more macho or more male, if I can say, stereotypically male behaviors, some of which people want or find attractive or are comfortable with, instead of me being this sort of sensitive new age guy, which I essentially was for a while. Which doesn't it doesn't always work.
Yeah. How many years have you been with your wife?
Oh boy. Well, we met in December of 2002. So is that 20 years now? Yeah, it's more than 20. Yeah. We've actually been together since like 2004.
Yeah. How do you explain the longevity?
Compromise, to use a word that we had used earlier. Listening, listening, compromise, and forgiving, and taking the bull by the horns and trying to change yourself, which is always so hard. Like that Todd Rundgren quote, "How can I change the world if I can't change myself?"
Amazing.
Well, we all try to change the world as much as we can, but it's harder actually to change yourself, even though you would think that you are you and you and should be able to maybe work with the elements that are you, but it's hard.
Probyn, I asked for 90 minutes. We got about 5 more minutes. Can you go a little longer or you got to go?
I could go longer.
Okay. Yeah, because that's funny because Harold Bloom said something like, people our age didn't really read. We read lyrics of songs, and you're quoting Todd lyrics as your sort of guides in life. That's what we do. Those songs that Dylan or whoever, Todd, these amazing songwriters. I mean, Peter Case brought me to attention of a lyric that just blew my mind. It was in his cheesy little newsletter he put out like 30 years ago. And it said, "I've got a move that tells me what to do, James Brown." Now, people don't think of James Brown as a great lyricist. Same with Jimi Hendrix. In general, they don't. They go, "Oh, he's the greatest guitarist of the world. He's the godfather of soul." It's like, no, that lyric to me is as good as Gershwin or anybody. "I've got a move that tells me what to do." That's amazing. That's like,
I love it. Yeah, that's fantastic, especially because he was so rhythmic.
Yeah.
I mean, I when I hear that, I think of Dance Move just because of his incredible foot action.
Yeah, your move is telling you what to do. Wait a minute. A move is different that's sense ratio shifting, that's like, so
I like that.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I was an English major. I don't always just quote rock lyrics. In fact, I remember when we were in 8th grade and they tried to, the teacher got this little book of like, famous 60s rock lyrics. And I loved music when I was in the 6th grade, but I opened up that book and they had some Doors stuff and some other stuff, Donovan, some other things. And I looked at it and I said, "This is crap. Everything in here is crap." It's like, I don't resonate with any of this.
That is great. I'm glad.
And yet I was at that age. I was reading read everything that Edgar Allan Poe had ever written, including some dog shit that he probably didn't want published.
Wow.
But I was into language and I was into short stories. And like my favorite humorists are S.J. Perlman, who's very wordy, and Saki, this H.H. Munro, this Edwardian, Victorian turn of the century writer who I think he died in World War I. Anyway, they are very careful with their words, and they always pick the mot juste, the bon mot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I was really into reading. I mean, reading was huge for me, almost as huge as music. It was my first. Before I got into music, I was into reading as much as I possibly could by anyone on any topic.
Well, Probyn, you really impressed me. Like early on, within the first 5 minutes, you dropped the name the Iliad. And I was like, oh, and then you go, yeah, I read it on the back of a Focus album cover.
Oh, but I had read the Iliad prior.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's my next question. Do you ever read any Joyce? Have you ever read any Joyce or
James Joyce? Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you read?
I thought you meant some. I thought you meant some modern author that I didn't know about, whose last name was Joyce.
That's perfect. They were talking to Captain Beefheart about literature. You know, he liked Nabokov and Philip Larkin. And they go, what do you think of Joyce? And Don went, Joyce who?
I love it. That's great. No, it's funny. I can't remember any particular titles now, but I like his shorter stuff in particular. In fact, that's always been my thing. I've been more of a short story appreciator than a. It's the same when we were watching TV with me and my wife. She's into these series, these long, drawn out stories. Give me a movie. I want to be in and out in 90 minutes, you know, or half an hour. if you can give me, and it doesn't have to be an O. Henry, you know, like snazzy ending either. It can be like. It can leave me hanging like Hemingway. So
yeah, that's good, because it does go into this. We go from lowbrow to highbrow. If Joyce is called highbrow, there's a line that goes, you create what you resist. Bob Goldthwait, the comedian, morphed it into you are what you hate. James Joyce. Isn't that amazing?
Wait, that was from James Joyce?
No, that's from Bob Goldthwait.
Okay.
That's now James Joyce says it's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve. And then Louis Buñuel said, thank God I'm an atheist. So it's this idea of you create what you resist. And I'm not saying you, Probyn, but this idea, what do you have any thoughts on that idea? You create what you resist. One creates what one resists.
I don't know about that. I'm thinking and thinking, and I'm not getting a gut reaction, and my brain's not. I'm in a big toilet bowl, slowly turning around. It's almost clogged. It's not going too fast. We're not going down all the way. I'm looking at the toilet water, circling, thinking. Nope, I'm getting a blank on that one. Sorry.
That's all right, Probyn. But you did anticipate this question I always ask. If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
Well, for starters, I have to laugh at that. That's great. Vomit, shit, farts. These are all my stock in trade. No. Okay. My initial reaction is that acid vomit is usually, there's a lot of bile in it. It's usually very acidic. I would probably welcome the introduction of the shit thrown in my face, because it would keep me from thinking about the fact that I am being not scalded to death. But did you say it was boiling vomit or just regular vomit?
No, it's just a vat, V-A-T, a vat.
Right, a vat of vomit. Well, you know what? I've dealt with a lot of shit in my life. My son, I've changed diapers. I have had a lot of dogs over the years. I picked up a lot of other people's shit that they've left on the sidewalk or in the grassy berms and medians, because I'm a nice guy, or I like to think I am. So anyway, yeah, so I can deal with shit in my face. That's okay. The vat of vomit, I would rather be in a vat of shit.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. These are 5 quick Alan Watts questions off the top of your head, just in a few words.
Okay.
1, who started it all?
Just like the chicken or the egg thing? Who started it all? My ass. R. Crumb. R. Crumb started it all.
Oh my God. I love that answer. My God, that is. Are we going to make it?
No. I'm sorry to be such a downer.
That's all right. Where do we put it?
Wait. I had a good answer. Where do we put it? In the. It's just some rock quote, and it's eluding me now. I had it just a second ago. I know. We put it in the pantry with the cupcakes, like in Mrs. Robinson.
Oh my God. In the pantry with some cupcakes?
With the cupcakes. It's a quote from Mrs. Robinson by Simon and Garfunkel.
Oh, that is good. And 4, who's cleaning it up?
I am.
Is it serious?
At the moment, yes. I'm afraid it is. Weather, politics, global state. Yeah, it looks pretty serious. Lack of drinking water. That's probably going to be the next world war over that.
Boy, I'll still wallow in the R. Crumb one, man. That's amazing. The guy who walked in here is Susie's musical partner, Brad Kay, one of the great music players in LA. He knows R. Crumb for the last 50 years because on the cover of a Zap comic that Mr. Natural was saying Diddy Wah Diddy. And Brad's an old 20s jazz freak, and he goes, "What this guy, what's this underground hippie comic having this old jazz?" He wrote him a letter, and they became friends and traded 78s for 50 years.
Wow.
So
that is awesome.
Yeah, no, it's pretty amazing. And I mean, R. Crumb, to me, there's a lot of them, but there's some of my heroes crossover with yours who, as Frank Zappa said on David Letterman, I don't have any brown lipstick in my makeup kit.
Like from ass kissing?
Yeah, and this is like, I would say like Frank, R. Crumb, Jean-Luc Godard, and a couple others. There's no brown lipstick. They don't do that. They just make their art. So what? Whatever happens.
Yeah, I have to get in just a word about the recently deceased Jeff Beck. I was out on tour about 10 years ago. I was out on tour with him. No compromises. He was giving it 100% all the time. Take no shit from no one. Real straight ahead. Just living life with he was one of those people. No, he didn't kiss anyone's ass.
Yeah. You mean you were in his band?
No. Oh, I wish. Oh, although I couldn't have kept up. He's in the fantastic. The people in his band are beyond me. It was a duo tour with Brian Wilson and Jeff Beck in 2013.
You're kidding, Brian and Jeff. Wow. That's heavy. Yep. Yeah, no, it's been so heavy going into the Jeff Beck rabbit hole for the last couple days. I mean, amazing. Yeah, Candy Zappa, Frank's younger sister, his little sister, was in the kitchen once. And Jeff was standing there with Frank, and Frank said to Candy, this is the greatest guitarist in the world. Just boom, right there. There he is.
Wow. Frank said that about Jeff.
Oh yeah, they were pals. Yeah.
I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah. How do you find peace of mind?
Wow. Waiting. I'm trying. I can't be glib about this. It's a heavy topic. Listening and trying to understand brings me peace of mind. Also, the place that brings me the most peace of mind is lying in some mountain stream on a not winter day.
Mountain stream. Isn't that amazing? You got to check this out. How psychic your answers are in presaging the next question. So if there was a statue built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
I would like it to be made of ice, and I would like it to be in the central square of Keene, New Hampshire, where I grew up. And I would like it to be gone by the end of the day. It would melt. People would, if they wanted to see it, they'd have to come, and that they would see it at different times of the day. So it would be like, if you came early, you could make out the facial features, and then later in the afternoon, I would start to look a little comical. Oh, also, it'd be great if there was a little heart. My heart would be made of shit, so there would be something that would be left that was undesirable, that people wouldn't. people wouldn't want to step in. So it would be an ice statue of me, maybe on horseback, whatever. We're just standing there, but my heart would be made of shit. And so people would avoid it once I was a pool of water at the end of the day.
It's beautiful. I love it. Maybe on a horseback. But this is when I used to ask it, if there was a statue built in your honor, what would it, where would you want it displayed? And then Susie, my wife's mom, said, well, I would want it to be pebbles and a mountain stream. And I'd like, that is amazing.
That's beautiful.
Because that made me go, well, now I'll ask, what is it made of? You know, because that's what put it.
Oh, you know what? That's even better. So forget the Central Square in Keene where people I know could see it. Better to have it way up in some canyon where maybe a passing bear or deer might or might not see it as it was melting, this ice thing melting, and making fresh water that they could drink. It wouldn't be hopefully it wouldn't have giardia in it like the mountain streams do now.
But you know, it's also a Laurie Anderson piece where early in her career, she would get 2 blocks of ice and stand in them with her ice skates and play the violin until the ice blocks melted, and then the piece was done. So
that's fantastic. I love that.
If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Wow. Keep on being romantic even when you don't feel like doing it when you get older. That's what I would say.
Do you know, your talk of all this reminds me of when I was a kid and I first started falling in love with women. You know what that just got me was Dionne Warwick, Burt Bacharach songs.
I love those.
And you just listen to them and you go, oh my God, that's how I feel. You know, that shit, that was just like, oh my God. I mean, it is my lifeblood, you know. If you hear
that music is fantastic. When that box set came out in the 90s, you remember that, the 3 CD set of songs that Burt had chosen as his favorite versions. Not all of them were Dionne's lead vocals. Some of them were the songs that we knew from him and Dionne, but done by other artists. Because of course he was big enough that he wasn't just Hal David, Burt, and Dionne.
Yeah. Pretty amazing stuff. It's amazing. So if a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
Wow. For some reason, the phrase "look at that guy there" comes into my head, but it's not my actual answer. Autobiography. Shoot, I'm drawing a blank.
Dude, that's pretty good. Look at that guy there is really good. They want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell?
Ooh. The smell of a skunk, but far enough. Have you ever smelled this? When you smell a skunk very far off, I'm talking about a quarter mile, half mile, it's been hit by a car. The beginnings of that smell are actually beautiful. It's only when it gets too intense, when you're near the body, that it's like, I got to get out of here. But the distant skunk, that's what I want to smell like.
Distant. That's a good title for the book, dude. Distant skunk.
Distant skunk. Fine, that'll be the title.
Just distant skunk, man. That's like, okay. Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
And that I never want to have. That I never had.
It's good you never had it, but you never want it.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
I don't believe it much anymore, but for many, many years, I believe that money corrupts absolutely. And that even if you're, Bill Gates and you've made your philanthropic funds, that still somehow the presence of money makes people around you act differently, not real. They're faking something because they want to get something from you. They want to get your money or they want to manipulate you into doing things with your money, and that it changes your life. I really, and so there's some part of me that still believes that to a limited extent. So the answer would be being like avaricious, not avaricious, but being like tremendously wealthy. I'm something I never had, and I don't want it.
Yeah. Guess what? The 3 answers I get the most: money, fame, heroin.
Heroin? You mean like the drug?
Yeah, that's the 3 answers I
Wow.
get the most. But money is the top one I get.
Yeah.
Tell me a cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you.
Well, I wish I could believe that it was an actual cultural shift that had some weight and longevity to it. But the acceptance of persons who are not sure of their gender and are
Yeah.
not sure of their nationality, and just the sort of the fluidity, the acceptance of things that are the other.
Yeah.
I am behind that. I don't actually believe this year that we're doing so well with that globally. Um, you know, the the far right and the fascist rises in countries around the world alarm me terribly. I still think that human rights is an issue over more of the globe than we care to admit. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's my
It's good.
long-winded answer.
And believe me, I would love to do a whole salon with you on guitarists, on lyricists, and on political activism, but I have to shoot this one in really quick.
Okay.
Great songwriter, political activist Utah Phillips said, "Anarchy is making rules for yourself and not other people. Who's entitled to make the rules?"
I don't agree with that. Anarchy is making rules for yourself. If you come up and face,
wait, and not other people. Believe me, an anarchist, a real highbrow anarchist specialist told me that's not what anarchy is. But I'm just saying it's a setup for the question, but it's cute because Utah Phillips was a jokester too, but he's saying it's making rules for yourself and not other people. Like, I'm going to follow my own ruals. So go ahead.
oh,
You
I
can.
see. I see your tack there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's kind of bogus. I mean, if you're going to agree to be an anarchist, then you have to deal with whatever anyone else's shit comes into your sphere. That you've got to deal with it. That's the way it goes. There's just no way out. If I mean, you may sidestep it and you don't get hit in the face with a cannonball. But so wait, I'm sorry.
But
The question was what about that quote?
Who is entitled to make rules?
We all are.
Yeah.
Especially under anarchy.
Yeah.
But even without anarchy, I think we're all entitled to make our own personal rules.
Yeah.
I can choose to be with the room that I'm in now, or I can go away from here. I can choose to kill my neighbor. I don't think I'm going to do it. But
yeah. Okay, 3 more and we're out of here, Probyn. Amazing. Okay. This one of the best ever. I love to laugh and be Frank Zappa. Frank said a great thing. He says, "I'm very serious about being not serious."
Good one.
And I know you appreciate Captain Beefheart. He goes, the stars are matter, we are matter, but it doesn't matter.
Another good one. That's a Beefheart quote.
That's a Beefheart poem.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so here we go. Which way should toilet paper come off the roll? Over or under?
Top.
Why?
So over.
Why?
I feel like you can rip off a piece without touching the rest of the roll, and you leave less of you on the roll in that manner. You're being nicer to the next party.
Nice. Thornton Wilder said in 1928, art is confession. Art is the secret told, but art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time.
Wow. That is heavy.
That's really happy. You've laid your cards on the table for over 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. What's it really all about for you?
Alfie? Hold on.
No,
That's just funny.
you answered a question with a question because you noticed you went Alfie as a
Right.
question.
'Cause what's it all about, Alfie?
Yeah.
Talking about Warwick and Baccarat.
Yeah.
Let me think. What's it all about?
For you.
I would like to think that we have another lifetime, and this is just our first time around, or whatever number time around, and that we've learned something, and we can bring it to bear in our next lifetime to make others' passages easier, and to bring a little more joy into whatever planet we end up being reincarnated on.
Yeah. Bring more to the next. That's beautiful. You'll love this. Paul Krasner says, I only believe in reincarnation in one of my past lives.
So he doesn't believe in it now. Just he believes that he was reincarnated.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a joke, but like,
Well,
Steve,
the joke would be like if so. Some people claim that there's an hierarchy of reincarnation. That if you are really good in your life, that you won't be a weasel or a chicken, and the next time you'll be some more quote advanced being, whoever decides what advanced is. I mean, I don't think humans are necessarily the apex of the system.
Hello.
Yeah, I mean, come on. This can't be. We can't be the top, or we're all fucked.
Yeah. No, it's another great one. Captain Beefheart played a show in Boston. My friend opened for him, and he was there. The opening act and
I didn't hear that. The opening act, what?
Was a chimpanzee, like monkeys dancing, was opening for Beefheart. And
That's great.
And as the monkeys were walking off the stage, Don went, "Good show."
I love that. It's like the Spinal Tap and Puppet Show, that they have.
No, the Spinal Tap anecdote you'll love. Harry Shearer said they were doing a test screening, and somebody wrote on the card, "Good movie, but you should have got a better rock band."
Well, that's funny you say that, because in 1983, shortly after the movie came out, I saw the band at the Music Machine, and I swear to you, there were people in the front row that did not know it was a parody. They were like, "This is great. Where can I get the album?" I'm like, "Oh boy."
Oh, I love the Music Machine. I have so many great memories from there. What a great club.
Yeah. I have to say that was a really good band. I mean, I was surprised if they were really all playing they were good.
Oh no, there's a fine line there. That's the beauty of it, that they did. There's a fine line between what's real and what's fake, and then that's where great satire is. It's, anyways. What gives you the most optimism?
Wow. Well, for some reason, just listening to music that I love makes me feel optimistic about the planet. It shouldn't. I mean, there's no reason why it should go that huge. I mean, if I listen to music, especially if it's like pop or rock music, and it's not something where the intent is spiritual, or to make me to elevate myself to some higher plane of consciousness, still, music can make me feel optimistic in ways that a lot of other things can't.
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. And McLuhan loved to quote, "The Balinese have no word for art. They do everything as well as they can." And to me, that's the magic of music. You put it on and it does something to you. It's just magical. And that's, the beauty of it is that it's this, I've gone for 40 years to the boardwalk and got all my band members from kids who are playing, and they're not there to necessarily make it huge or big. They're just there to play their music. and share music, and
Yeah.
all the power for people who can make a living. And like you did, you were able to play with your heroes. How cool is that?
Extremely, extremely cool. I'm so lucky.
Yeah, and it's all the power to you. It's beautiful. And Probyn, man, this has really been fun. I really appreciate it. I thank you from deep in my bottom of my heart. And I want to tell you, seriously, let's do a Todd salon or some guitarist salon or some, get a couple of these people, Willie Aaron and all these other people we know in common. And you get about 5 or 6 of these people, and we really have some cool Zooms on, probing music deeply, but having fun doing it. So,
That sounds good. So now
yeah,
I know you're about to end with the live portion. Can you hang out just you and me after you're done broadcasting, and I'll tell you that anecdote about Stanley Clark?
sure.
All right.
Here's my closing line I have to
Okay.
say. And it's been a real honor and a pleasure, Probyn. And even though I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, I hope this dialogue will continue going forever and ever, even after we reincarnate.
All right. Super.